Module 1. People often ask what, if any, are the benefits of past life therapy. To me, it's obvious. First of all, there are healings to consider. And I don't just mean the healing of an illness. I mean healing a relationship, finding answers, healing a business, healing motivation. In short, past life therapy may just be the answer to many of your problems, because past life therapy is one of the best tools to solve problems. Next would be money. People with money problems often find answers stem from a past life situation. You may have heard of past life therapy being a form of therapy that some hypnotists use to bring back memories of their former lives. Generally speaking, the hypnotist will put the person in a trance and then direct the subject back through their memory, a decade or so at a time, until they come to the earliest memory, and then they direct the subject to go to the life that's having an effect on the problem in the present. I've used the technique many times myself. I've taught it. Well, that's accurate as far as it goes, but I discovered something else, something more, and something that was extremely valuable as a resource for a great many other things as well. That discovery was that the effect was therapeutic, and I made that discovery during a party. I was attending a party some time ago. People always want me to put on a hypnosis show, and I usually oblige because they're a lot of fun. Nothing is more entertaining than stage hypnotism. One day, I think it was in the 60s. Wow, 50 years ago. It hardly seems real. But those 50 years, they went by in a blink. Anyway, as I was saying, during the stage show, I regressed a young lady, and she started to act and speak as though she was 3, maybe 4 years old. Well, everybody laughed, and we all got a kick out of that. And I thought I would try something that everyone talks about, but few people have ever experienced: past lives. I figure, well, she's a good subject, so let me try something. And so I took her back from her 3-year-old self and used the directional tone to send her to a past life. I was curious, and I did suspect that the result would be beneficial. Well, the whole room stared at her, waiting for her to speak. I was alongside when suddenly she sat up straighter, and she spoke in a commanding voice. She wasn't 3 anymore. It seems that she went into a life where she was the wife of a cotton plantation owner in the deep south of the U.S., long before the Civil War. We had fun questioning her about all the incidents in her life, and a good time was had by all. But when she came out of the trance, something had happened. I didn't know it at the time, but she had a case of Crohn's disease and was bothered by a constant stomach ache along with diarrhea. She called me the next day to ask me what I had done when she was in the trance. Well, I hadn't done anything different than usual, and I asked her why she asked. She told me about the pain and the diarrhea, and she said that for the first time in months, it was gone. The regression had apparently healed her. Well, after that, I regressed people with problems in every hypnotism class I did, and the results were really amazing. I taught a lot of classes of past life regression. I taught them in London and Paris, Holland, Greece, Switzerland, and Portugal, and most of the large cities of the United States, always with good results. How and why does it work? I haven't the slightest idea. I don't question it. As long as it works, I use it. The first time I was involved with the discussion of past lives in any form other than anecdotal was during a roundtable meeting with a few of my friends in the hypnosis and psychology fields. 2 of my friends were pure hypnotherapists, and 3 others were psychologists. One of them was a psychiatrist. We met once a week at our homes, and that particular week, we used my house in Tarzana. That's a suburb of Los Angeles. We used my house for our forum that week. We were discussing the various means we each used with clients and patients, and another good friend, Dr. Eugene Jusick, who had recently written a book on past lives, Reaching for the Oversoul, Dr. Jusick wasn't present at the get-together, but we were discussing his book, in which he described a patient who, when in a trance, suddenly turned into a totally different personality. The American worker of Irish descent suddenly spoke as Jan Sulu, a gentleman from what was apparently ancient China. I had discussed this seeming phenomenon with Dr. Jusick many times, and it was still somewhat of a mystery. Dr. Jusick is a medical doctor, but his interests were in the field of past lives. My own background, which was heavily into the yoga philosophies, accepted the reincarnational experiences. The concept was that of karma, and the belief that karma couldn't be dealt with aside from working out past problems with present afflictions that matched the evil that had been done in a previous lifetime. And that's pretty much of a standard belief. At some point during the evening, we decided to see if one of us could somehow tap into that energy and bring out a discarnate entity. As all of us were professional hypnotists, we drew straws to see who'd be the subject. I drew the short straw. Harry Reasoner was elected to put me in a trance, and pretty soon I was floating in that satisfying neverland between the physical and the spiritual. His words became dimmer as I went deeper into the trance, and suddenly, just like that, it happened. I found myself as in a lucid dream, a dream where I was in complete control of the action. There I was, walking along a street that was obviously not Kansas. It appeared to be Mayan or Inca culture, circa 1500 or so. I was wearing kind of a kilt with an elaborate headdress. Along the street I strolled, immersed in the Mayan Indian culture, stopping here and there to bite into a vegetable or a piece of fruit. But my enjoyment didn't last long, for with a whisper of a wind I was suddenly transported to the top of a pyramid, a Mayan pyramid. On a slab in front of me was a young woman. It appeared to be she was a sacrifice. I was a priest who was about to do the deed with a stone knife. Well, my true self came to the fore, and I wrenched myself out of that place and brought myself out of the trance. Well, we had a fine time discussing that one, but only I could get a sense of what happened. That was no dream. I was there. That priest was me. Was it another life, or did I tap into one of those infinite universes that I was to eventually be so involved with? I was determined to discover more about this business. If there were such things as past lives, why weren't there any memories of them? Well, I thought long and hard about this, and I did come to some conclusions. We have a physical body, and we have a mind. About that, there can be no argument. The mind recalls much of our experiences, but not all of them. As example, when you were 6 years of age, you were still you. You were the same you that you are now, but you acted differently and your senses were different. You had more energy, and your taste buds were at their sharpest. You could see better, hear better, and be more active. Think about a day in your life when you were 6. Do you recall what you had for breakfast, lunch, dinner? Can you recall anything at all? Probably not. And yet it was you. Nature has given us the blessing of not remembering. Imagine having perfect recall, remembering every single thing you've ever read, eaten, thought, smelled, seen, and heard, everything. You couldn't function with that massive material in your mind. Now multiply that by 10, by 100, by 1,000, and say that you can remember every single lifetime of yours. Don't even try to think about it. You can't comprehend it. No one can. But that past of yours is valuable. It is what makes you the person that you are. You act and react due to the experience of that past. You may not remember why you don't want to drive 120 miles an hour, even though it'll get you to your destination sooner. But something in your past, something that you did, something that you heard, something that you read, that causes you to consider the possible consequences of driving at that speed, and so you keep it to a sensible pace. And the result is that you arrive at your destination safely. All of your past experiences create your attitude toward everything, even though you don't understand the original setting up of the causes, those causes that create your present attitude. Now, let me extend the thought into a previous life mode to simplify the idea of karma. The saying, "What you sow, so shall you reap," comes to mind. Karma simply says that you pay for every misdeed, no matter how small, no matter how large. Whatever the deed, your karmic responsibility will eventually kick in. Does that mean that we have no control over our lives? After all, if you were an evil being in a previous life and you had that debt to pay in this one, then of what use is programming or goal setting or prayer? If it's your karma to suffer, then what's the use of trying to overcome that responsibility? Now then, karma is too vast a subject to deal with in its entirety with these short sessions we have together. I'm going to have to simplify the subject to better explain the real theme of this program, and that is past life programming, past life therapy. To assume that there is any value in past life therapy, one must think that there is such a thing as reincarnation, and that too is a subject too vast to completely explain. Well, then you may well ask, and what's the point? If you don't assume karma and you don't assume reincarnation, then how can you speak about past life programming? Well, good question. I go only by my own experience. After all, how else can anyone explain anything except through the avenue of one's own experience? Aside from personal conditions, there have been many anecdotal situations, too many to overlook. During my 10 years of daily practicing hypnotherapy in the U.S. and in Europe, especially when I was teaching others the subject, I always included a segment of past life therapy when all else seemingly had failed to get the result the client was looking for. In many of these cases, the client didn't believe in reincarnation and just went along with the process, skeptical with the whole procedure, but treating it as though it was a simple guided fantasy. My own belief was always open, as in an infinite universe, one of the concepts I teach, anything is possible. And so I used only one criteria, one standard, and that was, did it work? If it worked, I used it without questioning the veracity of the belief. Were the people actually going to a past life? Maybe. Was it just an elaborate daydream? Maybe. Did it work? Yes. And that was all that I have ever been interested in. If it works, use it. During this series on past life therapy, we're going to assume that when you go to a past life that is having an effect on this one, that you are indeed getting valuable information from that past life. Assume. That means just pretend that it will work and go along with it. You can question the concept later on, but if the process solves your problems, reverses your limitations in life, enhances your health, creates better relationships, and gets you what you want, then use it and keep it as one of your major resources. What we're going to do with this series of modules is to open you to other possibilities, things that, maybe you don't accept at first, and that's okay. I prefer that you be skeptical. I am, to a degree myself, still to this day. As a seeker after the truth, I'll be talking to you, using logic in most cases, and in some supposition, supposing, what if. But if the aim and the final result is to benefit you, your health, your pocketbook, and your life in general, if that is the aim, and if it works, use it. In addition to my talking to you, there'll also be a series of meditations. These meditations are designed to take you to a place you may not have ever contemplated, a different life. You, but different. A past life. All your past lives have an effect on your present life. All the good you accomplished in past lives show up in this one as well. All the bad shows up in this one as well. Everything is growth, and grow you will. This may very well be the most valuable course you've ever been involved with. This train is going to take you to a higher state of evolvement. The next stop, a better you. And here's the strange part. You don't have to believe it. After all, there's no real evidence. But after reaching a past life once or twice, you will at least have opened the door. And more knowledge can only lead to more wisdom.